Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make chicken noodle soup from scratch. So just stay with us and I'll show you the next step. Okay, first thing I did was I thawed out a whole chicken and then I quartered it. So this is not completely thawed. As you can see, it's still a little frozen, and that's fine. So I just wanted to get it to be able to quarter it. So the next step is to take my pan, and I have just heated it up a little bit with a little oil, and that's just a piece of chicken fat that came off, and I just threw it in here to kind of check the oil temp, but then I cooled it down because I originally wasn't going to record this, but then I decided to. So we just take our pan, stock pan, and I'm going to heat it back up, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, I heated up my oil, and it's heating up now, and I have taken this and I just laid out some paper towels and laid the fat side down so that it is to kind of wick away the moisture away from the skin. And I just want to put this fat side down in the hot oil. So I'll put it in the oil real quick and I will show you. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me over the sizzling, but the oil is now, I brought the pan up to heat and the fat, or the chicken fat side down, and now I'm able to just sear that fat before I start boiling my water to make my stock. So I'm just going to let this sear just a little bit, just kind of caramelize that fat. Again, it doesn't matter whether the meat is cooked, it just has to sear it the outside of it, because the boiling process will sear it, or will cook it completely. So I'll let this cook a little bit and show you what it looks like. Okay, so they cooked about, I don't know, 5 minutes. So this is what they kind of look like now on the side. We have this crispy skin, and it smells like fried chicken down here. So that's what we want. I did add about a tablespoon of Himalayan salt just to kind of on the raw side before flipping it. But again, the purpose of this isn't to cook it completely, it's just to sear it to get that caramelization flavor in it. So I'm going to cook this just a few minutes more on the other side to get the meat kind of caramelized, and then I'll so I'm about to add my water, but before I do, I'm going to add a handful of seaweed leaves and just let them kind of warm up by the oil. I add the seaweed to add a little natural sea salt, iodine, and but it also has a chemical in it similar to MSG that's natural, so it blends all the flavors, so when it cooks down in the broth it will add a lot more deeper flavor. So I'm going to add just a little water. And this is just filtered water we got from our water filter. So you can kind of see it already has this brownish, because that caramelization that's on the bottom will flake off into the water. The seaweed, again, I don't cut it up, I just leave it in straight. And you see it's already starting to soften. But it will, I boil all this, I'll add just a little pepper, but that seaweed adds a lot of flavor. So we'll just let this boil a little bit, and I'll add a little bit more water, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so this has been boiling, I don't know, about 15 minutes. So at a rapid boil, and now I'm going to turn it down. You can see the seaweed has expanded quite a bit. If I can get it out of there. So that's what we wanted. I only put the 4 pieces in it because they like most things that are dried. This just isn't cooperating at all. There. When dried, it expands quite a bit. So as you can see, the broth is starting to get, or has been, dark. It's darker than, you know, normal chicken broth. You just boil it in the water and it kind of gets a little yellow, but not really. So this is already starting to get a lot of flavor into the broth. So we're going to just turn it on the low and let it just simmer for a little bit. So you kind of get that chicken and all that bone juice out. So I'm going to just turn it down and cover it up and let it cook for a couple hours. I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. So I'm waiting for this to boil longer. It's been boiling probably about an hour. It's not time to pull the chicken out yet, but I have time because I'm watching kids, so this is the time that I'm going to do it. I'm going to saute my vegetables. So we have about 5 small carrots, 4 celery stalks, 1 large onion, tablespoon of chopped garlic, 3 tablespoons of butter with about a teaspoon of fresh milled pepper, and about a tablespoon of dried parsley. So I'm just going to sear this on a high heat. I want to just quickly melt the butter, coat everything, just let it sear, not cook all the way through, and then I'll just put a lid on it and set it aside and let it cool until it's ready to be put in the soup to boil down after the chicken has been removed and the seaweed has been removed and it's been strained through so that it's just the broth and a little bit of the chicken, and then I'll put the meat in with this and kind of reheat it back up or stir it up, and then I'll add that back to the broth to cook a little longer to finish cooking the vegetables, and but then also to make the noodles. So I will show you what that looks like when it is time for that. But once this is done searing, I'll show you just what I'm kind of talking about, where it's still got the crunch, but it's going to be at a very high heat. So again, the purpose isn't to cook it, it is just to quickly caramelize it. So we have it on high heat right now. I also wanted to say about the pepper, the reason I put the pepper right on the butter is so that when it melts down, the pepper oil will blend with the butter oil, and so that instead of having to put pepper over the entire thing, it will blend in with the flavors a little better, so the oil will disperse it better than just sprinkling it all over everything. So we'll continue this on high heat. Okay, so we're done with this sauteing here. You can see some of the carrots have a bit of a brown on them. I don't know if I can focus in enough there. So there's a little caramelization going on in the carrots and the celery, but basically also on the bottom of the pan. So we'll just set this aside and let it cool, and then when we're ready for it, we'll put the chicken in it and kind of pick it and just leave it on top here, and then add a little broth, and we'll scrape off all that brown flavoring off the bottom from the vegetables and the garlic, and then we'll pour the liquid and the vegetables and the meat into our broth, and then we'll get our noodles ready. So I'll show you what that looks like when we're ready. Okay, so it's been boiling now for about 2.5–3 hours. You see the stock's still getting pretty dark. It's reduced quite a bit. Now the chicken, you can see, is kind of falling off and starting to break up. So we're going to take that out. You can see the seaweed still intact. So we're going to scoop all that out and put it in a strainer, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So this is just the broth, and we've moved the chicken over here into the strainer above the vegetables so that whatever does drain drains onto the vegetables and helps bring the caramelization off the bottom, kind of helps liquefy it so we can pour it back in. So we will let this cool for just a minute, and then I'm going to go, or first like lay it out on a plate, and then to let it cool a little bit so I can touch it, and then I will take the bones off and the fat and skin, and then pitch that, and then put the meat in with the vegetables. And I'll show you what that looks like. It has been deboned, and we've let the juices kind of drip down. You can see that they've turned like a dark brown under there from all the drippings. So we're just going to scrape this, put this into our broth, and turn it on low to let it heat back up, and then we're going to get started on our noodles. Okay, so we're going to mix up our noodles. In this pan I have 5 cups of all-purpose flour, about a half a teaspoon of salt. I have 4 beaten eggs here. I'm beating in a separate bowl. I have 1 cup of milk that I added about a teaspoon of vinegar to help it curdle, and then 2 tablespoons of butter. This is a doubled recipe because we like quite a few noodles in our soups. You can, at this point, you can add store-bought egg noodles. You can also add rice if you would rather have it be like gluten-free. So, but again, we're just doing regular noodles. So we'll get this mixed up and I'll show you what it looks like. So we have it mixed up here. It's kind of clumping together a little bit. So we'll just dump it out on this. I cleaned this right before I started this and sanitized it with some antiseptic and got it rinsed really good after it sat for a while. So we're just going to push this together and just kind of knead it. And kneading it activates the gluten in it, which keeps it stringy. So just want to keep working it, and I'll roll it out and show you what it looks like then. Okay, I'm just going to speed the video and watch the process of rolling it out. Divided it in half because we have a lot of noodle here, so to be able to manage it a little bit more. So to cut it, and again I've rolled it, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch thick. You can roll it as thick or as thin as you want. And then so I just take my pizza cutter here and I just kind of go down and cut strips. And these noodles actually can be made in advance and you can freeze them. Just roll them, let them dry a little bit. You make these as thick or thin as you want. So I'll get these cut and then let me finish showing you those, I guess. So these are long. Okay, so now we're going to cut it this direction, and you can kind of cut them just into small little pieces. Now most directions for egg noodles say that you can just you have to dry them before you use them, but what I do is I just roll them, kind of fluff them up into flour like this, and you can just set them aside and then throw them right in the water. So okay, so this is the second rolling of them, or half, the other half. So I've cut them as evenly, and you want to cut them as evenly as possible so they can cook evenly, and then you just run these down as wide as you kind of want them, because they will, of course, because they're pasta, they will get thicker because they're absorbing the water. So just kind of okay. So then you just kind of lump them in and use your And you want them separated so that when you put them in the water, they will stay separated. You want to get your water to a boil. And put them in about a handful at a time. Make sure that they don't stick together. So that is all that one batch made, which is quite a bit. So we'll get these added to the soup, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's okay. So we're just going to take, let's see if I can adjust this. So you just take them and you just kind of sprinkle them in as it's boiling. Take your spoon, you just kind of make sure it's kind of moving constantly. You don't want them sinking to the bottom. And then when they start floating to the top, they will be done. So okay, here we have it. We're done. The noodles are done cooking. They're all blended in well. So see that they are. It's a pretty hearty soup because of all the noodles. So I'll spoon some up, and then there we have it. Homemade chicken noodle soup. And again, I know some are probably going to be concerned about the seaweed that was in it, if it's going to taste fishy, and it doesn't. It tastes just like chicken. Again, it's just like a flavor amplifier. It doesn't taste like fish. So it tastes like a very good homemade chicken noodle soup. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.